It sounds more, I mean, it's really quite simple, right? It's a different perspective, but it's very simple, right? Because everyone knows we dissociate and nobody knows what that is, really, right? And this is
Well,
go ahead.
you know, when you had that slide about where are you in the room, and there's somebody sitting in a chair, somebody up kind of in the air. And I was looking at it and I thought, where am I in the room? And I thought I could look down and see myself and I could see myself on the screen, but I don't see myself from up above or
Well, because you're in your body, you shouldn't. But if somebody's dissociated, they're going to see themselves from above.
I used to be able to see myself from above a lot.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right. So that means that you've learned to master, right, being here and connected to this body.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. Does that make sense now?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
So you said if you see yourself like the back of your head, what does that mean?
Well, normally, like if somebody's like seeing themselves from behind, I would intuit that they spend a lot of time in the past.
Okay.
Right? If they can see themselves from the face, they're spending a lot of time worried about the future. You know?
You mean like this? If they're like seeing themselves like face to face.
Yeah.
That's
If they're out front. Yeah. Like
and
that
then
would
that
be
it's like the past.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So fragmentation, just by definition, is the process or the state of breaking or being broken into smaller separate parts, right? The process or state of being broken into separate parts, right? That is fragmentation. So when we look, I'm going to pause for 1/2 a second and see if I can shut my dog up. Yeah.
Where are you in the world, Aldana? Where are you?
What?
Where do you live?
Oh, I live in Boston.
I'm in Boston. Okay.
Yeah. And where do you live?
I live in a little village called Dunham in Quebec in Canada.
Oh, okay.
Eastern Canada.
Yeah. Yeah. Like in the mountains or near Montreal or
Well, it's south of Montreal. I'm an hour and 15 minutes from Montreal. I'm
oh,
close to the US border actually.
oh, okay.
I'm close to Vermont.
Oh, okay. I've been to Montreal. It's been a while, but I've been there. It's really beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving me that space.
Sure.
So the quantum action too. So we've got this little dude, right? Like that, something horrible is about to happen. Maybe dad's getting ready to hit him. Maybe, he's getting pummeled and he leaves his body, right? Now, firstly, that astral body had to fragment, right, to get out, or he'd be dead. Yeah. So that's the first level of fragmentation, right? Now, we have to recognize, right? We talked about this a few minutes ago, that, the astral body has molecules, right? And they say 21 grams, right? And the discrepancy in that I've always taken as a recognition of the fragmentation, right? So we've got this little dude that, is yanked out of his physical body or knocked out of his physical body, right? And these molecules have separated, right? Now, we all know that we have these frozen loops of time that people get sucked into, right? And it's as if they overplay on every circumstance and create or recreate those cycles, right? So when we realize that those fragments are actually scattered through time and frozen and scattered through time, they end up with a life of their own, right? Now, that idea of people feeling scattered and messy, their conversations, maybe here's how I notice the level of fragmentation right from the get-go. Normally, there's like 2 or 3 words of this sentence, 3 or 4 words of that sentence, 4 or 5 words over here, and you're piecing like 3 or 4 stories together all at the same time, right? And that is a level of that I measure in working with people, is that their conversations are coming into sync, right? The more we integrate, the more we bring the astral body back together, the less the conversations jump all over the place, right? So when a person is triggered, right, what are we seeing? We are seeing one of these frozen fragments show up, and they usually show up under pressure. They show up when the grown-up is feeling somewhat in duress. And we have to recognize that when these fragments are frozen, right, that's very one-dimensional, right? And you know, we have to also recognize that kids don't have a huge descriptor of words. So you know, there's anger, there's fear, and there's hurt, pretty much, and happy, yeah, for kids. So those fragments are either going to come out fighting, they're going to come out crying, they're going to, right, like, but huge emotional spills, because that's what they were frozen and trapped in. Does that make sense?
So you're saying come out crying, come out like screaming? Like, can you just repeat what you said? You like when
normally the fragment is going to come out in a big emotional display. That's how we're going to see, that's how they're going to display in life. So if a person is having, you know, a big temper tantrum and meltdown, right, my first inclination is, how old are they behaving? How old is this response pattern, right? The fragment is going to come out in those moments that tears are everywhere, or you know what I mean, because that's, it's like alternate personalities. They're going to come out when it's needed, right? They're going to come out and fight. They're going to come out and, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now, something that is happening like wildfire right now in our world is that people are using these trauma words in their regular lives. So people will come to me and say, I got triggered. And I'm like, what happened? Da, 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 da. And I said, well, it sounds like you just got angry. There is a difference, right? A person getting upset and having appropriate emotional responses is not getting triggered. Getting triggered is when an old response shows up and overshadows today. That means these old stories are pulled forward, right, and laid in over what is going on today. Does that make sense?
I find it interesting, and I don't know whether it's okay to talk about this, but
Absolutely.
I had an experience today, and I think it's a result of the work that we did together, Cherie, is I feel a new strength inside of me, you know?
And we're just getting started, honey.
And what happened was that uh, my friend got upset with me, and she was criticizing me. She was really strongly criticizing me. And she was going on, and she had texted me, she had left texts, she had left voice messages, she tried to call me while I was working, and then she got on the phone, and then she was going on at me, and I lost it. I just started screaming at her, "I have had enough of you yelling at me. I've had enough. I'm not putting up with it anymore. You have to stop." And it was not a trigger.
Yeah.
I was
It's a
not triggered.
response to her behavior, and that's okay. Right. And, you know, when you get used to doing that, the emotion will back up, and then you can just say, you know, I'm not in the mood for this today.
Yeah.
I love you, and I'll talk to you another day. Or not. You know,
Good stuff.
I'm proud of you.
So
So these fragments, alternate personality disorder and fragmentation caused by trauma is exactly the same, right? These fragments are going to show up with their own personality. Say, you know, like I've had 15-year-olds that like will even show up even kind of drunk, right? Acting like, you know, party animal, whatever, or haven't, you know, they're gonna have their own thing, right? So when we go in and we jump back with that adult, we have to be in that space as if we're dealing with another human being, right? That 15-year-old has her own thoughts, her own concerns, and her own emotions, and she's trying to figure out a really, really chaotic, frustrating, upsetting situation, and she needs some guidance and help understanding how to navigate that, right? And diffuse that emotion, right? Now, EMDR claims to diffuse the emotion of a traumatic situation taking 3 to 12 sessions. We can do that in 20 minutes, right? Because this process is like surgery. So that means that you being very clear about what you want to cut out and what you're wanting to change is super important. And just like surgery, we have to be sure that the person is healthy enough to jump, right? There are times when people come in and I'll be like, you know what? I really see a jump, but today's not the day, right? We need to get you more stable first, right? Blah, 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 blah. Because their physical body is going to react. Now, Donna, what happened with you today with I usually call them drop attacks, right? Now, we have to recognize that dissociation is the separation of one thing from another. And this person is used to using that as an escape, right? So in that, right, I have a lot of clients that come in with seizure activity and what they call the kind of seizure where they just go to sleep or they're like this or whatever, you know, like so. But there's no actual seizure activity if they go in to take the tests, right? So what that is that level of dissociation, right? And if a person is used to doing that, right, and they get afraid, then that separation can be really fast and cause their body to go into distress. If you go back and watch Paula, right, there are videos where I had it actually coined where she does these drop attacks. Now, her doing it in front of me was not the first time she had done it, right? So that was a pattern for her, that if she got stressed out, she got nervous, she got overwhelmed, overstimulated, right?
So he didn't like drop out. He just, you know what? I'm just gonna forgive myself. I'm gonna forgive myself and
It's
forget.
not about forgiving, honey. It's about learning.
No, I know. So I feel bad because I'm like, crap. Like I really see that was not. Now I know. Don't go like whatever. I've
It's just
learned.
learning, right? Like it's just learning, and learning, I think it's important, like, to understand how powerful this tool is,
It is.
right? Because I think we're like, oh, we're gonna jump, like, and it's like, well, like, because it's fun, right? Like you can go take quantum jumping classes and they're bullshit, right? But I think we have to recognize that we are like doing surgery.
I get that. I get that analogy. What happened was, no, I didn't prepare him, and I I didn't prepare him, and it was too much. And like he did go back. He saw his 15-year-old self as he got closer. His 15-year-old self turned into like a black silhouette, and then everything went black. And
Okay, so he didn't physically drop out.
no.
Okay, that's different. So he didn't pass out. He just like got too afraid to see.
Yeah.
That's different. Okay. So in those moments, if a person is really afraid, before they pull out, right? Before the glaze comes over, you can ask them, would you feel more comfortable if I came with you this first time?
Okay.
And you can do that. Right now, when I jump with someone, my objective is always, as yours should be, that they are empowered by that and they're feeling like they did it all. Right? We want them to feel like they did it all themselves. Right?
Yeah.
So if you jump with someone, don't do anything, don't touch anything. Right? You still want them to turn the doorknob. You still want them to open the door. And as soon as that flow starts happening, you go home.
Okay.
Now you can peek in, right? Spatial clairvoyance is different than traveling and actually being present there.
Yeah.
So practicing your spatial clairvoyance where you're able to watch it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be able to guide them, right, towards missing information much easier, right?
Okay. Yeah. So the blacking out part, so if that occurs, do we like at that point I was like, crap, I did this, like I just got him back into his body, or actually probably got him into his body for the first time. But so that blacking out part where he just stopped seeing, it just turned black.
Just fear.
What?
It was just fear. So, I think that, I don't know the whole scenario, but if you're jumping somebody and they get there and they can see, and then the film comes in and they can't see, that film is fear, right?
Okay.
So at that moment, like, I would start going, okay, it's okay. Take a big deep breath. would you feel more comfortable if I came with you? Because it'd be best if we could finish this action, or, you know, close this loop before I bring you back. Right? So you can work with them, right? And teach them to stay, right? Say, you know what? You are the grown-up now. This didn't happen to you. We're going here to save this 15-year-old kid. If he wasn't you, would you be prepared to go save him? You know?
Okay.
Just have a bit of a question around this. A little. Okay, so they're in the time where they have a 15-year-old self who disappears on them. And you're communicating with them from now. And you make that offer, right?
So she tried to jump a guy back. He got in, which this happens often in the beginning, right? Like, and they need to trust you, right? You know, that level of trust between you and them needs to be solid for them to, you know. So anyway, jumping him back, he got there, he got to the moment, he planted himself in time, he could see his younger self, and he got freaked out.
Okay.
Right? So
He lost the
everything
picture.
went black. Yeah, he lost the picture, right? He lost it, right? I find that when fear enters, it's almost like a scrim coming down of blackness, right? And, you know, so that's different than him blacking out, right? So we want to be sure of that. Now, alternate personality and the traditional fragmentation, I don't see any difference, right? If a doctor had decided to name my fragments and separate them out, like, what a problem would that have been? Yeah. Like, they would have then, like, in my mind, had individualization, which ends up happening often with people who have alternate personalities, right? Now, Brooke, which you'll be able to see in the hub, she has alternate personality disorder. Brooke was used in child porn from the age of 2 all the way up to kindergarten at daycare. So they would bring in a whole film crew and all this, and they would drug her, and like it was so, you know, she had.
So how's she doing now?
She's great. She's great. She had a sex addiction that she probably was masturbating or having sex at least 12 hours a day while trying to be a mother. Right? So all these strange men were being brought into the house, like, or she was sitting masturbating with her 2- and 3-year-old kid. And we worked about 9 months, and she was released from her psychiatrist. She's one of the professional videos on the website, right? Like, she talks about, she even like sent in after she did that video. She did that video about 12 months ago, I guess. And then she sent an email actually to the production team saying that her psychiatrist had released her. She was released off of disability and, yeah, working, raising her child. Yeah, I'm real proud of her. Such a beautiful woman.